Yeah, this afternoon we want to talk about herbicide evaluation for the purposes of registration. Now, before any pesticide, before it can be registered, it has to be evaluated. So our focus is on herbicides. We want to see how they are evaluated, what sort of information is required by those who register herbicides. So I'm going to present. So the topic is herbicide evaluation for registration. So the basic information from herbicide technical data sheets. Any company which is interested in evaluating a herbicide, it needs some technical information. It needs some basic information, which it has to supply to those who are evaluating those herbicides. This information involves proposed rates, the crops where this herbicide is going to be used, the types of weeds which are supposed to be controlled, then the time of application. Is it a pre-planned incorporated herbicide, that is applying the herbicide before planting the crop? Is it a pre-emergency herbicide, applying the herbicide on the soil surface soon after planting? Is it a post-emergency herbicide, that is applying the herbicide when the crop has already emerged? Now, we also need to know the chemistry of the product. What is its chemical structure? Because it can tell us how long it is going to last within the soil. It's LD50, the indication of its toxicity. Is it a potentially green label, purple label, or orange label? These are the color codes which stands for the toxicity of the herbicide. Solubility. What is the solubility of the herbicide when applied to the soil? What is its vapor pressure when applied to the soil? Vapor pressure can give us an indication of how that herbicide can be lost in the atmosphere. Solubility gives us indication on the leaching processes of that herbicide. So the basic information is usually obtained under glasshouse conditions and need to be verified under field conditions. The issues to do with the rates could easily be obtained from a glasshouse study, and we want to verify the field conditions. There should be an objective which has to be developed. For example, to determine the efficacy of the new herbicide for the control of weeds in maize. Now, on the materials and methods, we have to do site selection. The ideal site should have a wide spectrum of weeds. We should also try it on different soil types, red clays, sandy soils. Some key weeds need to be planted in the research plots. But of course, the challenge is that some weeds may not easily germinate because of dormancy. The crop should be grown according to recommended agronomic practices. Here we've got examples of treatments which we can use. Number one, we need new herbicide at the target rate from the chemical supply. We can either increase the target rate by 10%. That is number two. Number three, we can decrease it by 10%. It depends. It can be increased by 20, 30, or reduced by 20, 30. Then number four, the standard herbicide. There should be an herbicide which is already being recommended to control weeds in a particular crop. Then the control that is timely and weeding. That is where we are not going to put the chemical. The control is important for assessing crop phytotoxicity. Now, the treatments need to be replicated, for example, 4 times, and an appropriate design is used. For example, it can be randomized complete block design. Treatments need to be randomized in each block or a replicate. Here I've got an example of a plot. So this could be the gross plot. There should be a net plot where harvesting of the crop and the weeds is done for our later to be used for analysis. So weeds can be taken from 50 times 50 quadrats, which are put diagonally. They can be at random. So what sort of data to be collected for this study? We need the crop phytotoxicity data, and weed control efficacy should be recorded as from 1 week after herbicide application. The EWRC, European Weed Control Research Council scores are used to assess crop phytotoxicity and weed control efficiency. Now, the weed scores range from number 1 to 9. Number 1 to 4, 1 represents excellent, and 4 represents good weed control. 5 represents the borderline control. 6, unacceptable control. 7, slight herbicide effect. 8, poor control. 9, no effects. So this is the scale which is used. On the crop scores, 1 to 5 represents no phytotoxicity to acceptable phytotoxicity. Number 6, that is unacceptable phytotoxicity. 7 to 9, serious phytotoxicity. Crop data, we need data of emergence, plant population, plant height. We can use photographic images of crop phytotoxicity, flowering dates, maturity dates, then grain yield. On the crop data, weed counts are taken from 50 times 50 centimeter quadrats and sampled at 3 positions. This could be systematic or random sampling. weed species are to be taken from 50 times 50 centimeter quadrats and dry weights determined. Data analysis. An analysis of variance is usually done on the data collected. In most cases, needs to be transformed before any analysis of variance is done. Now I want to look at the sort of treatment comparisons. These have to be followed after these questions, which are linked to the objective or objectives. Number one, for example, does the new herbicide control weeds better than the standard herbicide? The sort of treatment comparison which answers this question is to compare the new herbicide versus the standard herbicide. Is changing the recommended rates by 10% going to change the effectiveness of the herbicide? The treatment comparison which answers this question is to compare recommended new herbicide rate versus plus or minus 10% of the recommended rate. Does new herbicide cause phytotoxicity which is reflected in crop yield? To answer this question, we need to compare new herbicide versus the hand-weeded treatment control. Usually it will be the yields. Duration of the herbicide evaluation. This experiment can be done for 3 years. In fact, for registration purposes, they want data which covers 3 years. So the data on herbicide persistence could be obtained by growing sensitive crops at the trial sites, or soil samples could be collected from soil sites, and a number of crops could be tested under glasshouse conditions. Information for herbicide registration. What do they want? Normally, they want toxicological data. Number two, they want experimental reports which cover a period of 3 years of data collection, data on weed control efficacy, and data on crop phytotoxicity. They also need proposed registration label showing how the herbicide is supposed to be used. Dosages, crops, and the weeds controlled. It could be the crops where the herbicide is actually used. So these are the 3 things which the pesticide registrar may require. So this is the 3rd one. So this is it on herbicide registration. Thank you.